into the system. So here's a good example of different dimensions. It's a little bit old, but this is what I used to try to explain. Okay? So you had positioning, the world's favorite airline, advertising. So when you're going to reinvent your business, you change all the parameters. So sit down and look at your business across as many of these parameters. There's lots of lists you can make and say, okay, how am I going to distribute it? How am I going to sell it? Any of this starting to make sense? I'll show you something very interesting. This was one of the slides I used to have to go across to the board and all to try and explain the internet and what was happening to the business. So you'll have to excuse if it's a bit old, but I think you might enjoy it. You can also see where I got it wrong. It was a matter of time. I was too ambitious in my thoughts. But, so there I am. And my job is to go along to all the senior managers and tell them, hey, the world is changing, you can't just tell telephones. All right? So, I tried to map out how it was similar between the retail business. Can you hear me all right? So you can see, I know this looks very old, but you can see how you were trying to compare branding, pricing, payment methods. It's all the same thing, just in a different medium. Okay? So I did that comparison between BA, we talked about branding and all. So, I mean, this is way back in 2000. So we talked about what the new business was all about and how it would change in terms of products, revenue models, partnerships, process re-engineering, technology. This was my job, really. In those days, this is what you used to do to make your business go online. And so what were you doing different inside and outside? The thing that I'd like to share with you was my forecast for Microsoft. All right, so I was drumming on for 2 years, and I said, look, this is the way Microsoft is, and this is how they work, and this is how they remunerate their staff, and this is their big launches for their products. And then I said, this is the future. And I said, this would happen in 2002. Now, surprise, surprise, do you see Microsoft moving from a sales to a rental model? How many of you use Office 365? So, I'm only 15 years late, or early, or whatever. But the thing is, when you see the patterns, you can see it coming. The question is then, do you want to be the one who sees it first and gets there first? Does that make sense? Just go back to the other one. So, do you see how it re-engineered the model? They didn't have to worry about development costs so much. It changed their distribution model. They didn't have to sell their software through retailers. They didn't have to worry about piracy. They could get all the stats about it. It improved their part compliance. So like I gave you the example with the shirts, it totally changes it. You don't need a manufacturing, you don't need a house. So when you go to re-engineer your model, but you can imagine there was a lot of resistance from the old revenue streams moving to the new revenue streams. So that's why Microsoft did it slower. Okay? So just go back to what do we look at this time? So, how many of you are thinking of starting your own business? Okay, can any of you see how you might be able to apply some of these things in your own business? Right? So, innovation can be about how you go to market, how you do your revenue, do you go for a subscription, a rental model. So there are only 55 models in that respect. And that's drafted by a chap called Gassman, if you want to look at it. So if you want a shortcut, you want to brainstorm it, you say, you can pick it out of the list. Do I want a subscription? Do I want to sell it? Do I want an advertiser to pay for it? Do you see what I'm saying? All right? And most of the competition is at that system and business model level. So remember I was talking to you about Triz. So when he came across the bulk of innovation that is happening on a daily basis, if you look at your Golf, how many iterations has the Golf gone through, or the Prius, or Apple, we're heading towards version 10. But most of them are this level here, right? This is usually that small bit that's discovered in the labs. And the trouble with that is in the early days, it's usually a solution looking for a market. You know what I mean? When the laser got invented, who knew you'd use it to solve your eye things and so on? So this was the classification. So normally what happens is this is your product life cycle in terms of profitability and so on. So when you first come out, whenever there's a new technology that comes out, the number of inventions peaks and then it goes down. So when the internet first came out, when we talk about Web 2 and Web 3, we're actually just reinventing what was already there, but the models were too early for the market. I could take you through all of that stuff. So if we go down to the product level, again, like I took you through the big level, you can do product idealization, make it poly-combination. I'm going to take you through all of these different models now. Harmonization, integration, simplification, automation, self-service, smarter network, and I'll give you examples of that. I hope you're not finding this too heavy going. Okay, so these are all the things that you do. So if you look at every PC, it's become smaller. By becoming smaller and more flexible, if you look, there's my PC keyboard, it's up there. So when you see the patterns, you'll be able to apply them whether you're making a PC or a bit of software or whatever. So you've got customization, you've got automation, you've got simplification, you've got self-service. So if you're building a website, you can think in those models as well. So, for example, any of you familiar with the Internet of Things? Okay. Well, the thing people don't realize is whether you talk about fridges or your Fitbit is that it follows a standard protocol from a network. So the first thing you do is you want visibility. So I want you to go back to when the telephone exchange was made. When the telephone exchange was made first, they just wanted to, rather than send an engineer after they heard the exchange had problems, they connected it to a central thing so they could see what was happening across the network. Obviously, they built this platform. Then they said, oh, wouldn't it be great if we could run some diagnostics so before we send the engineer to fix the network? Then they said, oh, could we control it? Can we switch it on and off? Then can we automate it? Then can we make it intelligent or self-healing? And that pattern applies to anything that's Internet of Things. With your fridge, with your photocopier, with your printer. Does that make sense? So when you're making your product plans, you can start step by step with that model. So if we go back to this example, what typically happens is, first you make your product, like those people made that roll-on bag. Then the airline regulations and the places to put it changed also to accommodate those type of bags. So first the product, then the company reinvents itself, then the market follows, and then the industry evolves. Can you see that iteration across all the industries? So we talked about all the different types of innovation. These are the different revenue models if you go to the Gassman thing. So also when you're going there, you have to cater for legacy issues and how you manage a project. Okay? So sometimes you don't know if something is possible. Usually the biggest innovation is that the person is taking the risk to launch it first. Okay? But once somebody's done it, it's easy to copy. Okay? Sometimes you're not sure about your customer requirements. You make it, you put it out there, you watch what they're doing, and then you modify it for future releases. So you could do your project in a phased way, a Big Bang way, you could do a switch off, and how you do your prototyping. So back to the patterns I was talking about. So somebody invents something new. So the technology comes across. I'm going to demonstrate this across a couple of industries for you as well. So the first thing you do with the product is called idealization, which is, can I take away the side effects? Can I take away the costs? Or can I get rid of the product itself? So, this is what you're trying to do with idealization. So, very often, let me give you a little example.